The pre-trip inspection is everything you must inspect on the vehicle to ensure that it is safe to operate on the road. The inspection will consist of 6 separate sections, including the walk-up, the engine compartment, the side and back of the tractor, the connections between the tractor and trailer, the trailer itself, and finally the in-cab inspection and the air brake test. You will want to provide a couple descriptions for every item you are inspecting. For all items that are metal or plastic, you want to ensure that they are not bent, broken, or cracked. All items that are made out of rubber should have no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and all components must be securely mounted. The pre-trip should be performed in the same order, with the same information every time. Inspect each section beginning from front to back, top to bottom, and inside to out. Point to or touch every item you inspect. By doing it this way every time, you will be able to ensure that nothing is missed during your inspection. This constant repetition of the pre-trip inspection, as we presented here, will help you memorize the complete process for making sure that your truck is ready for service every day.
You first start with an overview or a walk-up inspection of the vehicle. All my clearance lights securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked. Another proper color, red in the back, amber and orange everywhere else. The front of my tractor shows no signs of damage. Both my headlights are securely mounted. They're not bent, broken, or cracked. My truck is properly registered and has a proper inspection. My truck is not leaning in any direction, which can indicate a load issue or a suspension issue, and my tractor does not appear to be leaking any fluids. Our engine compartment inspection consists of our alternator, securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked. Our alternator is belt driven. The belt is not ripped, torn, or frayed and has no more than 1/2 to 3/4 inch of free play in it. Also, we have our water pump, securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, not missing any hardware. It is also belt driven. The belt is not ripped, torn, or frayed and has no more than 1/2 to 3/4 inch of free play. And our water pump shows no signs or visual leaks. Down in the back, we have our air compressor, securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked. Our air compressor is gear driven and there are no audible leaks coming from the air compressor. Going to our fluids now, we have our coolant reservoir, securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked. Shows no signs or visual leaks, and it is at the proper level. We have our coolant hose, securely mounted, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and no visual leaks. Our power steering reservoir, securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, no visual leaks. As you can see, it's at the proper level. We have our engine oil dipstick and our engine oil fill, both securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked. Dipstick is where we would check the oil, and the engine oil fill is where we would add oil. Moving on, we go on to our steering components. We have our steering shaft, securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked. There's no excessive free play. We have our U-joint, securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, and properly lubricated. We have our steering gearbox, securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, and there are no visual leaks coming from our steering gearbox. We have our pitman arm, our drag link, and our upper control arm, all securely mounted by 2 castle nuts and not missing any hardware. Moving on to our suspension components, we have a spring hanger, securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, not missing any hardware. We have 1 leaf spring, securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked. We have 2 U-bolts, securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, and not missing any hardware. We have an airbag, securely mounted on top and bottom, not bent, broken, or cracked. And our airbag itself has no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and no audible leaks. In the back there, you can see we have a spring hanger, also not bent, broken, or cracked, and not missing any hardware. Moving on to our brake components. Getting back to our suspension components, we have a shock absorber also securely mounted on top and bottom. And there are no, not bent, broken, or cracked, there are no visual leaks coming from our shock absorber. Getting back to our brake components now, we have a brake chamber securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked. I don't hear any audible leaks coming from my brake chamber. We have our air lines going into our brake chamber. No abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and no audible leaks. On the inside of our wheel, in our brake components, we have a calipers, our rotors, and our pads, all securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked. Our rotor shows no signs of bluing or warping, and our pads have a minimum of 1/4 inch of material on the pads. Moving to the inside of our wheel, the inside of our wheel has no extra holes or welds. It is securely mounted. The inside of our wheel is securely seated to the inside of our tire. The inside of our tire itself has no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and no audible leaks. The surface of our tire is worn evenly, has a minimum of 4/32 to tread depth, and I don't hear any audible leaks from the surface of my tire. The outside of my tire, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and no audible leaks. It is also securely seated to the outside of my rim. The outside of my rim itself has no extra holes or welds in it. All my lug nuts are securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, and there are no rust trails coming from my lug nuts. Inside this hubcap we have a hub seal, securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, and there are no visual leaks from the hub seal. And we have our valve stem securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked. This is where I would check the tire pressure, and this is where I would inflate the tire. Okay, now we have our tractor inspection. All right, starting off, we have both of our mirrors securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, not missing any hardware. Our door handle securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, working properly. 2 door hinges securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, not missing any hardware. The door itself is not sagging anywhere. A weather seal. There's no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. Turn signal indicator securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked. Of the proper color, amber. Both of our steps securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked. Not missing any hardware. There's nothing on there to cause me to trip and fall. We have our catwalk and our catwalk steps securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, and not missing any hardware. There's nothing on there to cause me to trip and fall. Our fuel tank and our fuel tank straps, all securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, not missing any hardware. My fuel tank does not appear to be leaking anywhere, and my fuel cap has the safety chain and the weather seal intact. On the other side of our frame, we have our exhaust securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, and there's no extra holes in our exhaust or holes in our exhaust. We have a drive shaft securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked. We have a U-joint in there, properly lubricated. It's not bent, broken, or cracked, and there's nothing causing the obstruction or rotation of our drive shaft. We have our frame. There's no extra holes or welds drilled in our frame, and everything on the tractor is mounted to the frame. Moving to the back, we have a mud flap and a mud flap bracket, both securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, not missing any hardware, and our mud flap is a proper clearance from the ground. In the back of our tractor, we have our tail lights, not bent, broken, or cracked, securely mounted, another proper color, red. Starting with our suspension components, we have a spring hanger securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, not missing any hardware. We have a single leaf spring securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, not missing any hardware. We also have 2 U-bolts securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, not missing any hardware. We have a shock absorber securely mounted on top and bottom, not bent, broken, or cracked, and the shock absorber does not appear to be leaking anything. On the back, we have a airbag securely mounted on top and bottom, not bent, broken, or cracked, and not missing any hardware. And we have the airbag itself, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and no audible leaks. Moving on to our brake components. We have a brake chamber securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, not missing any hardware, and there are no audible leaks coming from my brake chamber. We have 2 air lines going into our brake chamber. There's no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and no audible leaks coming from them. We have our calipers, our rotors, and our pads all securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked. Our rotor shows no signs of bluing or warping, and our pads have a minimum of 1/4 inch of material. Moving to the inside of our wheel. The inside of our wheel has no extra holes or welds in it. Inside of our wheel is securely seated to the inside of my tire. Inside of my tire has no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and no audible leaks. The surface of my tire, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, no audible leaks. It is worn evenly and has a minimum of 2/32 inch of tread depth. The outside of my tire, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, no audible leaks. The outside of my tire is securely seated to the outside of my rim. The outside of my rim itself has no extra holes or welds drilled in it. My lug nuts are securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, and there are no rust trails coming from my lug nuts, which indicate a loose one. My hub seal securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, and there's no appear to be any visual leaks coming from the hub seal. We have a valve stem securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked. This is where I would check the tire pressure, and this is where I would inflate the tire. Now we start with the connections portion of our pre-trip. We have our service line and our emergency line, both securely mounted to the tractor and securely mounted to the trailer with the glad hands. Both lines have no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and there are no audible leaks coming from them. We have all our electrical lines securely mounted to the tractor with the safety tab, securely mounted to the trailer with the safety tab. And our electrical line is not ripped or torn, and there's no exposed wires off from our electrical line. And all of our lines have the proper clearance from the catwalk. Going underneath we have our trailer apron securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, not missing any hardware. We have our fifth wheel securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, and there is no light between our fifth wheel and the apron of the trailer. We also have a pivot pin securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, not missing any hardware. Our release handle is in the locked position. Our fifth wheel securely mounted to the skid plate. Our skid plate is securely mounted to the frame. Going to the back, we have a kingpin securely mounted to the trailer. It's not bent, broken, or cracked, and our kingpin is securely locked inside the throat of the fifth wheel. Okay, starting on our trailer inspection now. Starting out with our inspection sticker is up to date, and our registration is up to date. The front and side panels on my trailer show no signs of damage, and all the rivets are intact. My clearance lights up top are of the proper color, red in the back, amber and orange everywhere else, and they're not bent, broken, or cracked. My marker lights securely mounted, not bent, broken, cracked, and of the proper color. The side of my trailer has a minimum 50% DOT tape. My trailer cross members securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked. The floor itself is not damaged and there are no holes in the floor. Moving back, we have proper clearance for turning between our mud flap bracket and our landing gear. The landing gear itself is not bent, broken, or cracked, securely mounted, not missing any hardware. And the crank handle is in the stowaway position. Our fuel tank securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, and doesn't appear to be leaking anywhere. Our midship turn signal securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, and of the proper color. Both are turn signals. Moving back, our trailer airlines. They're not abrasions, bulges, or cuts, no audible leaks, and of the proper clearance from the ground. Our trailer slide track securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, not missing any hardware, and our locking pins are in the locked position. Moving back, we have a mud flap and a mud flap bracket securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, not missing any hardware, and the proper clearance from the ground. Moving back, we have our ABS light securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, and of the proper color, and our marker light. Rear marker light securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, or the proper color red. Moving to the back of our trailer, our clearance lights up top on the rear of the trailer securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, another proper color red. My tail lights securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, another proper color red. My trailer door itself is not damaged anywhere, and the weather seal around the edge of it is intact. My door latch is in the locked position, and the back of my trailer has 100% DOT tape. Moving on to the suspension components on the trailer. We have a trailing arm mount and a trailing arm securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, and not missing any hardware. We have a shock absorber securely mounted on top and bottom, not bent, broken, or cracked, and does not appear to be leaking. We have an airbag securely mounted on top and bottom. No abrasions and bulges and cuts in the airbag, and there are no audible leaks from the airbag. We have our brake components consisting of our brake chamber securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, not missing any hardware. We have two air lines going into our brake chamber. No abrasions, bulges, or cuts, no audible leaks, and no audible leaks coming from our brake chamber itself. More brake components consist of our calipers, our rotors, and our pads, all securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, not missing any hardware. Our rotors show no signs of bluing or warping, and our pads have a minimum of 1/4 inch of material in them. Moving to the inside of the wheel. Inside of my wheel is securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, and no extra holes or welds on the inside of my wheel. Inside of my wheel, securely seated to the inside of my tire. Inside of my tire has no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and no audible leaks. Surface of my tire, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, no audible leaks. Surface of my tire is evenly worn, has a minimum of 2/32 inch of tread depth. The outside of my tire, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and no audible leaks. The outside of my tire securely seated to the outside of my rim. The outside of my rim itself has no extra holes or welds. All my lug nuts are not bent, broken, or cracked, and securely mounted. They show no signs of rust trails, which would indicate a loose lug nut. My hub seal securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, and there are no visual leaks coming from my hub seal. And my auto inflator, there are no abrasions, bulges, or cuts on my auto inflator, and I don't hear any audible leak coming from it. Everything I inspected on the other side of the trailer and tractor I would also inspect on this side. At this point, you'll have to do an external light check, starting with the marker lights, headlights, high beams, left turn signal, right turn signal, four-way flashers. Then have the instructor move to the back of the tractor. We'll have him check the brake lights, left turn signal, right turn signal, and four-way flashers. And at this point, you'll have the instructor go to the back of the trailer and you do the same process over again. After you're done with your external light check, you'll be asked to do a in-cab inspection and an air brake test. Starting out with your safety items, you'll have your seat belts, not ripped, torn, or frayed, latches and unlatches properly, our fire extinguisher, securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, fully charged and ready for the load, our safety triangles, securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, another proper color. We have our city horn and our air horn, both working properly, and we have spare fuses here if we should need them. Both my mirrors are securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, and adjusted to me. My windshield, securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, and there are no illegal stickers that would impede my vision. My windshield wipers are securely mounted, not bent, broken, or cracked, and the blades are intact. I'll now turn my key on. My wiper washers are working. My heater and defroster are working properly. Now I'll check my indicator lights. My left turn signal, my right turn signal, my four-way flashers, and my high beam indicators, all working properly. I will now perform a safe start. Now with the engine running, I want to check my oil pressure. It's at operating level. My water temperature is at operating level. My primary and secondary air gauges at an operating level. And my ABS light came on and went off, indicating that it is working properly. I will now start my brake test. First test is the tractor park brake. I will test that by releasing my trailer brakes, putting the truck in drive, and doing a short tug test. Working properly. I will now check my trailer park brake test by applying the trailer, releasing the tractor, putting the truck in drive, and doing a short tug test. That's working properly. I will now release both brakes, putting the truck in drive, and pulling forward to do my service brake test. That's working properly. Now I put the truck in neutral, turn the truck off, turn the key on, hold my foot on the service brake for 1 minute, and my air pressure should not drop more than 4 pounds per square inch. 59.60. It passed the air leakage test. Now I will do my pump down test to check my low air warning light and my low air warning buzzer. I will pump my brakes till my air pressure drops between 65 to 60 psi, and my warning lights and buzzer should come on. My low air warning light and buzzer came on. I will continue to pump my brakes until my air pressure drops between 40 to 20 psi, and my spring brakes should pop out. Spring brakes have popped out. I will now do another safe start. I will now do a air compressor test. I will hold my foot on the throttle, bringing my RPMs up between 10 and 1500. Once my air pressure gets up to 85 pounds per square inch, it should take no more than 45 seconds to get to 100. We're good. So now once it gets between 120 to 140 psi, my air governor should spit. And that concludes your air brake test.